Welcome, guys, to the How They Did It podcast. I'm here with my old strength conditioning coach. He worked in Russia. He's in Istanbul. He's worked in the top teams in Euro leagues with basketball players all over the world. He's one of the best strength conditioning coaches I've ever worked with. Super knowledgeable, changed my entire interpretation as a trainer. I thank him for a lot of the trainer that I am today. Welcome to the podcast, Kostas Chatzichristos. It's a pleasure to have you.
Well, thanks for the intro. So I'm happy to be here and happy to be able to do this together. Obviously, we know each other for many years. You are my first combat sports guy, and I got some funny stories for that too for down the podcast. What happened after we met?
I'm super excited. We're going to get into all of that. And I'm going to ask you some questions because I've actually, for many years now, I've been a trainer. For the most part, I trained athletes, especially combat athletes, mostly from the technical side of things. But because, as you know, combat athletes generally don't have a lot of money in most of these things, I would end up needing to become their strength conditioning coach, their martial art coach, their nutritionist, and due to the fact that I had this demand and I felt this pressure to help these athletes go, I dove deep into these subjects. Over the years, I've developed a certain amount of knowledge base, and I have some questions that I want to bounce off of you and see if you agree, you disagree, where your heads are. Sound good? We ready to jump in?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
All right, perfect. So, first thing I want to talk about is general strength versus sports specific training. There was this quote once by Mark Rippel that I heard that it kind of spoke to me. Is there a thing called baseball strong or is there just strong? And the point he was making in this quote was if you want to get somebody strong for baseball, would your approach be to make them deadlift, squat, you know, shoulder press, the basic compound movements to get stronger, or would you add a couple pounds to the baseball bat? And he's like, ideally, to actually get stronger would be to use those compound exercises, develop that strength through those compound exercises, then through the practice of the actual swing of the baseball bat during baseball practice, he would get stronger. Hence, his conclusion was there's not a thing called a baseball strong, there's just a thing called strong, and then you're good at baseball. Where do you land on this continuum?
Well, that's a huge conversation, very good one. I am a proponent of an athlete-specific strong, right? So, what does that mean? What that means is that as you go down, through your career, you start realizing that there are some basic principles for training, right? So, if you overload a muscle, if you overload a system, if you apply some kind of challenge to the system will adapt. If it's strength, neurological adaptations, physiological adaptations, hypertrophy, so on and so forth. Each individual that you see has slightly different or, really different needs. Okay. So you have to think individual, right? So, in my opinion, you got to figure out how much stronger that athlete needs to be. You need to figure out why they're not executing that movement that you want them to execute without the strength or the speed or whatever the sport is that you want them to execute. It might be a problem with range of motion. If there, you mentioned baseball, I am not a baseball expert. My expertise, I would say, is team sports, basketball in particular. Okay, or baseball is a team sport, but I never worked with baseball players.
Yeah.
If you have a limitation on your shoulder mobility, then that might manifest as a strength weakness. And because you don't have the right function on the shoulder, you can really strength train because maybe that will cause pain. So, in my opinion, is get the athlete kind of you have to establish their needs. For sure, I am a big component of get the system upregulate. Let's use that term. All the systems, so make them stronger with compound moves, with different types of strength exercises, whatever the sport might need, lunges, different types of pushes. Overload is the key. All right, figure out what kind of overload they need. For example, many athletes don't need to cannot go into this max strength phase, okay? Because they develop, for example, you want somebody to work on their deadlift. and you see that after a while the back is acting up. They can uh, to raise the, let's say, the intensity, to put more pounds on the bar will cause more problems than is going to solve. So you got to read the athlete, work on those general athleticism characteristics, and then usually the sport specific movements are taken care of in the sport. For example, we're doing basketball, right? I'm training basketball players. We're trying to get people stronger in the lower, in the whole body, in their whole body, lower body exercises, uh, heavy exercises, uh, then exercises around 80-70% with Olympic lifts or whatever somebody needs. And then the really sport specific stuff happens on the court. We use bands for lateral slides. We use bands for lateral jumps, for sliding, defense stuff. But then the actual high speed movements is basketball. So there's no weighted, ball shooting. Just get the legs strong, get the core strong, get the upper body to be strong enough. For each athlete, this is different, right? And then the range of the shot is going to take care of itself. I have players that are doing amazingly good with not a lot of hypertrophy, and they look that they're skinny, but they're super strong in the game. They're very agile, and then use their physical capacity, and they use it in accordance to the skill and talent, then they produce a great athlete, which is another good conversation to have about complex systems. What makes a good athlete? Is it just the physical? I think we just focus on that strength stuff, and we're strength coaches, and we love that. And strength is never a deficit. It's never, strength is always a plus. Well, not always, and it's not the only thing. It's a complex systems. The system, the body is a complex system. Training is a complex system. It has many components, and you have to really try to establish their connection, right? And what all these components are going to produce as a whole. So that's the base of my philosophy. It's a long
Well,
answer.
no, no, no. I love it. And I actually seen this, I've already seen this in practice training with you in the past. Uh, when we were training, the one thing that was a stark difference when I started training with you versus training with other trainers in the past, especially in the martial arts field, where they haven't thought about this in a very complex manner. It's most of the training was circuit type, CrossFit type training, which some metabolic conditioning, maybe some weightlifting involved. And to be honest, I brought this Mark Ripto up for our conversation because you were the first coach I ever worked with that made me, and it's something I wish I stuck with more in my career, and I didn't. Actually just get in the gym, and like a lot of the workout was lifting weights. It was just weightlifting. There was like a big portion. There was also portions where you were helping me because I'm slightly uncoordinated. My one foot's shorter than the other. I had a bunch of other struggles to go with where you're trying to help build my coordination and my balance. But there was even just a base layer of me doing something that I hadn't done before. And I remember that when I did it, my body changed. My just having that base layer of strength, my ability to be able to perform in the gym drastically changed. Uh, when you try to do that, when you see an athlete, let's say you see an athlete like me, I think it's a good thing to start with. 'Cause I'm a very unique, very difficult guy to work with. I was obese. I had a whole bunch of problems. How do you do your needs analysis to realize how am I going to help this guy? This guy's a mess. Let's figure it out.
Well, I don't think we should gonna get into this big detail about analyzing jump characteristics in the force plates and things like that. But the general idea is you see a person. Let's say you walk in the gym. The first thing I want to know is your injury history. For example, you had a whole bunch of issues with your knees, if I remember correctly. Then there was some
Yes.
back issues, shoulders, and martial artists are full with issues, like most athletes. So my first thing is, can this person actually train? Can this system be loaded? And if we see that sometimes there are problems that you can work around with. As if, for example, you have a meniscus problem that acts up when you go below certain degrees of squatting, let's say, of knee flexion. So you can avoid that and still train. Some other times you can see that this is a problem. It causes, for example, you like to lose some muscle mass, and that is a problem. So now you need to take a few steps back and solve that problem first. I have another example for this. I had an NBA, a Greek NBA player come to train with us in May. It was around May, so a little bit before the off season. This player was coming from the NBA to sign on a Greek team. And he was gang ho, let's go. I need to train. I haven't been playing the last couple of months. I had an ankle sprain and I want to train. So my first thing was, well, let's take a look at the ankle. We'll say his ankle is okay. The ankle was still swollen. He didn't have proper range of motion. And I know that if I load that system, first of all, he's not going to be able to go through my workouts at the intensity that they need to be in order to produce a result, to produce the desired adaptations. And the second thing was that ankle is going to get worse and worse. It is never going to get resolved. So priority number one, check the injury history. Okay. And spend some time to try to solve this. I know a lot of people come in and say, I want to get ripped. I want to get in my best shape. I say, wait, first things first, we got to get that ankle, knee, back, whatever is in order. That doesn't mean that you don't train. You do train. Train whatever you can from the system and work in detail for whatever you have to solve, right? So that's the first step. The second step is you really quickly you have to establish what this person is capable of doing at this point and where they need to be. And that's where they need to be is really crucial. You train a martial arts, you have a big advantage over other trainers that never really competed or worked with martial artists. You know what the end result needs to be, right? So you know you're here, my friend, and you need to go up there. No, I'm okay. No, you need to go up there. Trust me. I know what it takes. I know what it takes to play in the EuroLeague, in the NBA. I train a lot of NBA athletes, so I know where I need to get you. So I know when I see you and we run some tests, we run the force play test, movement test, quality of movement tests. Let me see how you sprint, how you accelerate, how you decelerate, how you use your levers in order to produce or reduce movement, right? So once I get that, then I start. The keyword is progression. Is progressively loading the system, see what fits that athlete and what doesn't fit that athlete. I had an idea with you to do full squats. Well, let's say you're not a good squatter either because you have the unfavorable limb proportions, torso versus femur, things like that, or right? Or because you just don't like squatting. So I need to figure out what you're capable of doing and then load these parts of the system that needs to be loaded progressively. And that's a key word. Progression is a key word because sometimes trainers just jump in. I am I like to do squats. I like to do this, Instagram things that I've seen with the bands and the balls and slamming and everything. Well, wait, what is the first step? You're going to get to that problem, right? So progression is huge and try to figure out what this client needs to be doing. And they're going to tell you what they need, not you. I'm a squat guy. I like Olympic weightlifting. Well, that's you. Does this person needs that, right? Maybe they just need mobility work for the first month and a little bit of strengthening. And you know what? Because they have a very bad posture and their anterior chain is all worked up and let's call this, magazine terms muscle bound or whatever. You need to do corrective exercises, which I don't like this term, but you need to kind of restore the balance of the body. No, I want to bench. No, calm down. You don't want to bench, right? So what the person needs, it's about reading their needs, not your preferences as a trainer, your bias. And that is huge. This answers the question, do you like yoga? Do you like Pilates? It depends. For who?
Yeah.
Right? So it might be a great exercise, might not be a great exercise. If I have athletes that are hypermobile, hyper in quotes, they have very mobile joints. Should they be
Yeah.
doing yoga? Probably not. I
Yeah.
got other dudes that they swear by it. I had an NBA guy coming out to play for us, a long career in the NBA. He says, I like to do yoga, but I could see why, because you're stiff.
Yeah.
So that is kind of again a long answer, but I would pinpoint to solve the problems first, the health problems first. Uh, know where the athlete needs to be going, and try to figure out which of your tools are best suited for them. That's why you need to have knowledge and know how to use a lot of tools because you don't know what you need to pull in and read the body.
For sure. I think you hit on a lot of really good points here. And I think the main point, and this is the same with a lot of general population clients as well, where I think a lot of trainers make mistakes is that they don't go into the training, they go into the training session with their plan instead of a plan for the client. Because every client is going to be one having different abilities. Some people might be like, especially with general population. I train a lot, mostly now. I train general population people, just everyday people that want to get in shape. And a lot of my clients will be guys that will come in the bar and they'll bring their friend to train and they'll be like, come on, Tony, throw the weight on with, we want to lift. And I'm like, yeah, this guy doesn't know how to do a bench press. It seems so simple to you, but to him, this movement is still complicated. Like it would be so much more beneficial for me to help him learn how to do this movement, or even potentially in some cases, swap that movement out for something that is a bit easier that I could load a bit quicker to get him the results. That's why cookie cutter approaches, I'm really against them for most people. But the next thing I want to
And
ask you is,
I
sorry.
want to jump in a little bit on that. And you're absolutely right. And you mentioned the bench press. One of the biggest, let's say, if you ask me what are the the 4 or 5 points that you absolutely need to see in a trainer, or what are the most important things in program design and execution, is correct execution. You got to know the biomechanics of the exercise. You have to be able to read your client's body. What are their individual characteristics? Do they have, like I mentioned, lever proportions? Do they have long arms, short arms? Does the shoulder have proper mobility? Was there ever any injury in the shoulder? When was the last time you ever lifted? So, and then really go step by step in teaching very detailed mechanics, exercise mechanics, and not only teaching is coaching. Your job is not to sit there and just count the reps and say, let's go, let's go, let's go. It's about correcting. Mark Verstegen, one of my mentors, one of the greatest strength coaches, the last 20 years, was saying every rep and every set must be perfect. And in order for this to happen, you need a coach. So that stayed with me, and I'm always, even when I had a lot of people in my gym, you remember, I was feeling stressed out because I was kind of missing out on some reps, and I just wanted to correct everything, because if you want to get if you want to get results, you need perfect execution. And if you just, whether you train athletes or the general population, you don't want to hurt them. You don't want to do something that it's not the greatest thing for them, but because they want a big chest for the beach, I'm going to go ahead and satisfy them to keep the client. And that's where we jump in and say, I'm going to find ways to train your chest, let's say, but
Yeah.
without the bench press. Let's do something else that you can tolerate. Let's see what your system is capable of doing to get the adaptation that we want. Goes back to the tools. Do you have enough tools to play around, or all you know is, I need a bench press? There's a lot of coaches like that. You need to get stronger, squat, deadlift. Well, there's other things. I love squats and I love deadlifts, let's say, but there's
Yeah.
other things. Half my team doesn't squat. We first of all, we rarely, if ever, double leg squat, but that's a different story. But you get my point. I think you're right. You got to take a step back, and that's how you gain the trust of your clients. And if they just want to lift, maybe you need to fire them. They're not for you.
Yeah.
You know.
I think you're right on point here. And I do have another question, but I want to throw one little piece in there. It's something about the squat. It's funny, for years, I really struggled with the squat personally because it was so glute dominant for me. And I really believe the reason is I just have super long femurs and a short torso. So my body, to keep balance, needs to lean forward. So I have to make adjustments. And for the longest time, I refused to not do back squats as my main workout just because that was like, I had like almost a predisposition to believe that this is the key. And my quads would never grow. And actually, part of my knee problems, I found out way later, was because my quads were just so much weaker than the rest of my legs. And I started changing that for when I have the ability for single leg exercises, stuff like hack squats, pendulum squats that are kind of forcing me into that motion with much lighter weights. And I saw growth. And instead of being like, man, all these years, if I would have thought this through for more than a second, and I think that is where your coaches come in overall, is like they have to be able to see and be like, listen, this isn't the best. It's not that we can't make the squat work for you. This is going to take so long, so much effort for this little bit of upside. Well, we could just do this and get all the benefits or 99% of the benefits without that thing. So that's one thing I'm completely with you. I really like what you said there.
Yeah,
I want to
and
ask you
it
one other
goes
thing
back
because
to just to add one little thing to that, and
yeah,
we go into the next, but
yeah,
that's where it comes down to, do you really understand the exercise? And I'm not saying I understand all the exercise. Do you understand what the squat does? Do you understand what the needs of the athlete is? I've been training, especially earlier in my career, I've trained a lot of ACL like patients, like ACLR with ACL reconstruction patients that did, the operation. And we had issues loading that knee in various phases, and the VMO is not picking up, and then you realize that it's also very related to what the athlete can do, their physiology, but also about exercise mechanics, and where does the knee goes when every time you you lower yourself, you squat, and the knee has to flex and slide forward. You can tweak this movement so you can get a bigger activation on the front part of your quad, which is the VMO, without doing anything else, just raising the heel or letting the knee slide a little bit, provided that the athlete can do it. Because there's this knees over toes craze. Yeah, but some guys do it. This movement is good and it helps, but some other guys causes pain. So
yeah.
again, we're talking about individualization. We're talking about uh, knowing the mechanics, knowing the tools. So
I love that. I love that, and I really like that you brought up the musical toes. So I'm gonna jump into something else really quick, and this is something that's really in your wheelhouse, and I want to get your opinion on this. So I've been around basketball players my whole life too, basically. As you know, my uncle and my cousins are all in the basketball business. They're all
yep,
basketball agents. Diamond Sports, shout out to Diamond Sports. They always get a lot of these players, and in the off season, a lot of these guys, not naming no names, they come out of shape. They come back to think they're not in the best shape. What advice could you give as a strength coach for some of the top basketball teams in the world, in the EuroLeague, all over the world? These teams obviously pay you to come be with them. You know exactly what you're talking about here, and you do a lot of work in season. I have a belief as a coach that a bunch of the real big improvements you make them outside of the season. I want to know, do you believe that? And what things would you recommend these basketball players to do when when they don't have a team, when it's summertime and they're back at home?
this is a very sensitive area that I have very strong opinions about, because I've seen it work and I've seen it don't work. Training, progression, and achieving your goals, whatever your goals are, whether they're aesthetic, which are fine, I just want to look good, great. They're performance based, there's career based, whatever. The base of everything is consistency, right? A lot of people think that I'm just going to work hard for 6 months and chill for the rest. I did a great off season, but I'm not going to live hard in season. That's the biggest mistake, right? So consistency. Summer can make you or break you. Okay, if you don't do the appropriate amount of work and quality of work in the summer, then your season is going to be, and especially the older you get, problematic at least. What that means is that once the season is over, you got to take a few days to rest. Take a week off, take 10 days off, do nothing. Go home. It's probably June, July in Europe, or a little bit earlier in America, but take your family, your friend, your girlfriends, go alone, whatever, and just do something fun. Rest, go to the beach, whatever. You got to come back and plan your summer. Your summer should have high intensity work for some period of 20 to 30 days, followed by a rest period again, and followed with another small circle of work, followed by a rest before the off season. Okay, so season ends, rest, work, rest, preseason camp. Okay, you need to rest, but you need to work. What is work? One of the things that stands out in my experience all these years is that you got the guys that don't work at all. Rare happens. I just won an NBA championship. We celebrated long summer. I achieved my dreams. I signed with a European team. I did nothing in the summer, but some training here and there. Okay, that's one case. Rare, but it happens. The majority of cases falls in two categories. One is I'm training, but training is not my top priority. My social life is. But because I'm away all the season, all the winter, I'm either overseas or I'm too busy with my basketball. I'm going to train for a week, then go for a wedding for 4 days, come back, train for a little bit, go for another wedding, and just it's an erratic schedule that training kind of fits in somewhere. They show up in training camp. You can tell these guys they're a little bit overweight. They got a little bit of an excess body fat. They need to be 8%, throwing out rough numbers here, random numbers. They're 11. Are they overweight? No, but your playing weight is 8%. What does that mean? Is that a big problem if you get a few extra pounds? Well, not really, but it shows me that you didn't put the work needed in. So it's a proxy measure. I just look at them. Say, you had a nice summer, huh? Yeah, coach, I worked. So when a player says I worked, can mean a whole bunch of different things. So you get this type of guys, they're just training, but they're not really training, right? The problem that's a problematic category. The other one is that I did work, but and that surprises me a lot, right? I work a lot in the weight room. I gained 5 pounds since last winter. I said, who told you to gain 5 pounds? You're one of the best players in the league, and your playing weight is very specific, plus or minus half and 1 pound or 2 pounds throughout the season. And you went ahead and what? You put in pounds, and they don't run. That surprised me. That's a really big surprise for me. That there's a lot of trainers out there that they prepare people to go play competitive basketball. That's why I said you got to know what you're preparing for as a trainer, and they don't have them run. Did you do any agility? No. Do you do any decelerations, accelerations? No. Very few. Did you hoop? No, I didn't hoop. You know you got a problem right there. What happens is they start the preseason super tough for them because they never ran, right? And we don't do crazy stuff in the preseason. We just train once a day. It's a little more intensive and a little more volume, but nothing crazy. Can't keep up. Things start to hurt, right? Sure enough, your pounds are going to go back to what your, factory, let's say specifications
Settings
are,
are.
yeah, within a month, right? And there's a very few there's a small population that they do the right thing. They hoop, they play, and they do what they need to be doing. They run, so they come in ready. So off season is absolutely the key for a successful career.
And I can imagine this. I've seen it so much. Like you'll see guys get signed to a team, and then they'll go to the team, and then the team will be disappointed. Then it's also I think there's another level of it that then the coach is slightly disappointed in the player as soon as he comes in. He loses a little bit of trust. You have to gain that trust back through the season. Basketball players are a bit fickle when it comes to like dealing with this kind of confrontation with the coaches, and I think it has like a multitude of issues. It has on the physical side of things, like yes, you will not be as good of a physical player because you did not prepare to be a good physical player, and you had a moment where you could truly manage fatigue while you're in the off season. It's a time when you can take time off when you need it, plan time off. Decompress, get rid of all that fatigue, and then come in and smash in the gym again. Whether smashing in the gym, again, your coach will let you know specifically. Maybe you do have to get stronger. You're a center. You have to get a bit more mass around you. Or maybe it is that you need to be able to accelerate a bit quicker because you're a point guard or whatever your situation is for you. I think that the fact that you have the opportunity in the off season where you're not on this grueling schedule of playing ball every day, practice and games. This is the time where you can really put in the work and control your fatigue deload when necessary. Is there anything that you see that I'm off at here, the way that I'm thinking?
You're exactly to the point, and the sequence is just as you described. And I have a list of, at least in Europe, very famous names that had their careers jeopardized in the highest level. Okay, so for those who don't know, I worked in CSKA Moscow, which is probably the best team in Europe. In our world, in Europe is the best teams. Um, you sign with this team and you come unprepared. Okay, so you come in, you had a good summer, you kind of prepared. What happens is that the worst sequence of events is this: you come in unprepared, right? You say you're okay. I did something. I'm good. I just need a few days. Okay, that's the first red flag. Then we start training. The coach just paid quite a few million euros to get you. So he's not going to get like, oh, well, we need about 20 to 20 days for XYZ player to prepare them so they cannot participate in our team practice. No, he's going to practice. I'm going to take care of him. I'm going to sub him often. If you're not ready to go, you go from level, from your 50% of your activity to 100%. There's no a number of subs they're going to save you. You're gonna be in trouble. What happens is that usually they get hurt, right? So there's some kind of important or less, like, let's say, severe or less severe injury, severe epidemiologic term of you might have to miss a week or 10 days, or 10 days to 30 days, or over 30 days. Usually it's a muscle event. That's usually what happens. Or it's a stupid accident because you're so tired at the end of practice and you crash into somebody. You can't. I've seen those things happen. I have like fibula head fractures because somebody slammed into you and you were like, you couldn't move, right? So muscle events, some kind of tear, are the most usual, right? Your neuromuscular system is just not ready to face what is coming. Your tissues are not strong enough, and let's not get into the physiology, but you get a muscle tear. So now what happens is that we're in training camp 10 days, and you have to lose a month because until you heal and we start doing these light workouts, it's a month. That means that you came in on a 60% capacity, you just dropped to 40, and it's November, right? The other guys are flying. They're just playing. Now you come in. Problem number one that you're facing if you're that type of player is there's no practice because we're playing. European basketball is just like the NBA. There's no team practice, very little team practice during the season. So where are you going to get in shape? By yourself? Okay, yeah, you're running, you're doing your work, provided you're that focused. Then we'll do some, like 3-on-3s with the players that don't play, things like that. So long story short, now it's Christmas and you're still not in basketball shape. And there's no time to train. And the team is probably rolling without you. So now you have to come in and you have to catch up. Most of the times what happens is about a month in, you get hurt again because you started at 40% or 50, 60%, you fall on 40, you train, you go to 70, but you're never at the 100%. And the game is being played at 110%, if I may. So that's a vicious circle of coming unprepared, getting hurt, and never being able to catch up throughout the season. What does the team is going to do at the end of what is the team going to do at the end of the season? It's going to release you because you're a big disappointment,
Mhm.
right? So, and then nothing creates havoc in the team more than these cases. Management starts asking questions. The agents are involved. No, this, he was in shape. No, he was not in shape. He came in earlier. The coach is pissed. The performance medical staff are under extreme pressure, and all you had to do is prepare in the summer. Come in training camp. I text everybody. I email them. I send them programs. Come back. You got to be 90% ready. There's no time to get in shape in European basketball. There's no long preseasons anymore. You just got to come ready. Summer is your biggest opportunity to change levels as a player and as an athlete. Then is your biggest trap if you don't work. You're gonna go down a level. So staying in the same level without working is pretty much a dream. It's not gonna happen. You're either gonna go up by working or you're gonna go down at some point. Especially if you're
Uh,
only 25, 26 years old. Because
yeah,
when you're young, you can cope with everything, right?
yeah. I also think that one of the problems is, and I'm guilty of this as an athlete myself. So I got to the highest level in my sport. Like I got to the version of the NBA in the UFC. And the funny thing was, I went into my fight in the UFC. I was 30 kilos above my weight class, 30 pounds, or 16 kilos, 36 pounds above my weight class. Out of shape. I had an injury. I had a million excuses. I can give you the list. It's a laundry list of excuses I have. But it's funny. At some point, I remember I was in the bathtub cutting weight, and my coach told me, he said, the mailman gets up and goes to work every day. Unless he has a vacation, which is a couple weeks out of the year he gets off, the mailman goes to work every day. Your job is to be an athlete. I love you, but this was your job. You didn't do your job. Just because you didn't have a fight coming up in this time doesn't mean that this wasn't your job. And I remember that it hit me so hard because I was like, it's so true. Like this was my job. My job isn't only to step in the ring. My job is to do all these other things beforehand to be ready to step in the ring when it comes, when the opportunity is there, you know? And this leads me to another thing I'm curious about. It's not super in your wheelhouse, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. Nutritional strategies for athletes. I know that you're having a lot of these athletes putting in a lot of work, doing a lot of exercise especially while they're working out and they're in camps or they're on the game. They're massive amount of ask from their body. Do you have like coaches on the team that focus on their nutritional side? Do you try to help them, or is there just general guidelines? What's your thoughts on this, especially for basketball players?
Well, that's a complicated. It should be straightforward. I would love to say that, yeah, we control the nutrition and they all ask questions, which is not the case. We see the athletes for 3, 4 hours a day. The whole concept of a 24-hour athlete. So we do have a nutritionist on staff.
Mhm.
She's really good. I think she's trying to consult most of the players. Players get most of their information from friends, from things they read, from people they follow, and that creates a big, big confusion. This generation of players in general gets in a lot of information. They come in opinionated about training, about nutrition, about coaching, about everything. The previous generation of players that I was coaching, because I'm in it for more than 20 years, it was
Yeah.
you were there same like they were coming to you with all the questions because there was not a lot of ways to get information. No internet. I mean, the internet was just starting, and people were not on the internet that much. So now you get people turning vegan because of that celebrity. I'm telling you cases of pro athletes that I had. It's not something that I read. I have people coming to me
Yeah.
changing habits just because somebody told them something. Uh, I I cut pasta, rice, and whatever else. Well, why? Well, I went to this nutritionist, to this specialist that is working with Djokovic or whoever, and he said, I cannot tolerate this. I said, all right. So, and what did he replace it with? He just said not to have it. Okay, great. So now what are you doing? What happened? He lost, at least I remember, there's a Russian player, 2, 3 kilos in the course of like 3 weeks. So that's a huge problem for me, right? I
Yeah.
had that's one case. Another case turned vegan because my wife said we want to turn vegan. I said, all right, great. I respect that, but go to a nutritionist where they're
Yeah.
gonna give you a program, a nutrition plan based on your desires, right? So don't just arbitrarily cut meats because it's not healthy. And I said who, first of all. Second of all,
Yeah.
nutrition is highly individualized. So what works for me doesn't work for you for various reasons, physiology, psychology, whatever you want to call it. So my experience is that it's a little bit chaotic. We try to talk to the athletes, we try to consult them, we try to push them in certain cases to follow what we say, but we cannot control fully their lives. There's some people that just do whatever they want to do. Whenever we provide them meals, we make sure that there some good choices are available. And it's not only about the choices, it's about are you getting enough energy to meet the demands. It's not about eating fast food. Okay. It's about getting the right nutrients and getting the right amount of energy calories in order to perform. We got religious people, athletes in our clubs, Christians, Muslims. They follow the fasting demands of the mandates of their religion. That is a big issue for us. I mean, I respect that, but if you go
Yeah.
for a day without eating and then you eat at like 7 o'clock at night, and then the last time you eat is at 4 a.m., that's a problem. And you can see that
Yeah.
manifesting on the court. So what can you do? Individual approach and try to talk to people and try to convince them that what your staff and what you were telling them is correct.
I have this thing that I think that happens, and one of the issues is survival bias. So a lot of players and a lot of athletes, fighters too, even a lot of general population people, they'll be like, my friend Fred has a six pack. I want a six pack. I'm going to do what Fred does. Fred could be genetically predispositioned to be leaner. He could have never been fat when he was young. He could have grown up with lower body fat count, and that's why he's ripped. And even if Fred is doing things that quote unquote you would consider wrong, and I'm using that very loosely, meaning that it's not that it's wrong, it just might be wrong for me to do because I have genetically predisposition that carry more body fat on myself. My diet has to be maybe a lower calorie diet. Or I can't eat chocolate cake like Fred does every night and still get those results. I think that happens with players too. They'll look up at another player as like, man, you know, X player all summer long, he smoked weed and he, ate Pop Tarts and he killed it. He was scoring 20 points a game. That is not false. That's true. And I can completely empathize with seeing that and being like, why can't I do that? But that's why it's important to look at things on an average and giving yourself the best chance to do it. Because if you look at these survivalship biases, you're going to end up running into problems like, well, yeah, it worked for him. He happened to be a genetic outlier. He happened to be that 1% of people that could either handle that or recover quick enough or have enough fast twitch muscle fibers to just be explosive throughout the year no matter what. Have you seen stuff like that happen a
Absolutely.
lot?
No, absolutely. In our level, you do get it, but most athletes kind of find their calling. I have a couple of guys that have come in from the summer, and I'm thinking, oh boy, what now? What this season? Well, I played in this. I practiced with Steph Curry in the summer, and we played, and he does X, Y, Z, and he does this and that. Or Kobe was training like a maniac for like 4 a.m. and it worked for him. Doesn't mean it works for you. You got to find your own system, what works for you through trial and error. I, you can try new things. Some things work, some don't. I have an athlete that is vegan. He's training obsessively before practice, after practice. He comes in at night. On his off day, whenever we get an off day, he takes the plane to wherever flight he can find for a day, and he's traveling out of the country to go visit a city. He's our best player, MVP, scores 25 points. What am I going to tell you? Don't go, but
Yeah.
you're supporting him. If I do the same thing, I need 15 days to recover as an athlete,
Yes.
right? So other athletes need to lift before the game. Absolutely. If I don't lift, I don't play. Other guys don't want to live 2 days before the game. Individualization is where it is, although we're in a team sport, it's individualization. The problem is with the younger ages that they see and they look up to all these players. Oh, LeBron did this and LeBron did boxing throughout the summer. LeBron, whatever he's going to do, my man, he's going to be LeBron, right? And I
yeah.
assure you that before and after the boxing, he was you shooting hoops, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he
Yeah.
just tried it for a month because he was so bored, or
Yeah.
whatever some star did doesn't mean and it worked doesn't mean that it's gonna work for you. Another thing that is that is to me interesting, and now in the internet era is also very interesting, is that cause and effect thing. There's causality versus correlation. So you get look at this NBA star doing all these balance exercises, right? And then that somehow translates to their, and they just put a clip on the court that it kind of matches the movement. And look, he's doing all
Mm.
this juggling thing, and look how he handles the ball. What's or oh, somebody has very flexible ankles, and this is the exercises that we're doing. So when he rolls his ankle, he's able to go back into play. That's because he has super flexible joints, right? And
Yes.
he rolls the ankle, and the ligament doesn't break. Let's use this term now, right? It has no strain, no rupture, and then he's able to go back. Well, if I do it, my ankle's going to get absolutely destroyed, no matter what preparation exercise I'm going to do. And you don't want to make your ligaments too flexible, right? Because there's plastic
Yeah.
changes involved, and then your kinematics are going to change. So that's a problem. But if this famous athlete did it, look, I need to work on my ankle mobility. To Are you serious, man? So going back to your thing, individual needs, trial and error, and we try to consult them as much as we can.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a real struggle to get this causation and correlation out of people's heads because I remember, even as me as an athlete for many years, I would go to the gym, I would like walk into ATT, and there was just a ginormous amount of killers in there. You just walk in the room, every dude to the left and right of you is a murderer. And you're like, all right, I don't know, you get put in one group of one guy, and you're just like, this guy's my guy, Gleason T-Bow, let's say. This guy's my guy. He cuts 30 pounds to make weight. All right. He lifts weights like a bodybuilder, like he's doing hypertrophy work like 4 days a week. And he looks like he does hypertrophy work 4 days a week. He eats chicken. I'm gonna do what he does. Cool. You start doing it, I don't know, for whatever reason, you get put in another group. Oh, it's it's Mursad Bektik. Oh, Mursad Bektik. Oh, he's super flexible, hyper flexible. He does yoga. Oh, I got to start doing yoga. I know you're just confused. You just ain't confused. It's like this guy, one guy has, Gleason Tebow is super strong. Smartly enough, he realized that, hey, my biggest strength that I have is that I am extremely strong. Spending all my time trying to get flexible, results won't probably benefit my game. Rasad Bektik, super flexible, spending all his time trying to get strong, probably not going to be the best thing in his game. And it takes years to pull back and see it as a coach. It's so easy to see, but when you're in the game, you're just looking for any advantage you can.
Exactly. And it goes back to the complex system theory. Human bodies are complex adaptive systems, right? So you can get the same result from different combinations of parameters. Slow athlete, super talented, strong, great performance. Super explosive athlete, not so talented, very explosive, let's use that term, very effective. So it can be a different combination of things that might be happening. I have some amazing athletes that never get hurt. They're not flexible at all. In
Yeah.
fact, there's a guy that I have on my team, knock on wood, he's a record man. He hasn't missed a game in the league, which is super hard to happen in 2.5 years. If you see his mobility, goes you if you're like one of these coaches, if you're a mobility specialist, you're gonna put him on the table and stress the shit out of them of him. But you know what? I don't think I should. I need to correct some imbalances for sure, but I don't want to intervene in that system. So I'll tell you a funny story. When I was in Texas, in Austin, I'm a graduate of the University of Texas. I did my master's there. So my mentor was training Lance Armstrong. So for the younger generation, he's the one of the greatest Tour de France cyclists. Yeah, fall from grace because of drugs and whatever, all this drama. Still a world class athlete, regardless,
Yeah,
right? So
for
and
sure.
he has a terrible posture, on the bike, being kyphotic and all that. And at that time, we were big with like posture. You have to have proper posture.
Yeah,
And I asked my mentor, said because he came into the lab to test and to his facility to train. I said, did you talk about the posture? Says, I'm not going to touch any posture. I'm not going to be the one that messes up Lance Armstrong.
yeah.
He adapted to that. You
Yeah.
need to have, yeah, you do need to have, but maybe not. So you have to be very careful. I'm cracking up all this. On Instagram, you have this mobility. Oh, you look at this hip mobility is so important. They write an article underneath about why hip is important, and they performing these exercises perfectly just because they're super mobile. Show me an athlete that was super stiff and did your program and became super mobile. I've seen people improve. People improve for sure,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah, definitely.
But you just gave the perfect example. But that dude is going to try to get some muscle mass, and he's struggling. And the other dude is just, going through his workouts and he's doing great, but he's not flexible. But the other guy is flexible and mobile. And so, you know what? Figure out what's important for your athletes. Try to fix what you think should be fixed, trial and error, and don't be too much in a rush to correct things, right? So if you see tight hips, maybe there's a reason they're tight for this system they're trying to support, right? So maybe not, but maybe they are. So be careful.
Yeah, I think that that's so important, and I think having the mental flexibility to be able to look at the situation dynamically as a coach might be one of the most important skill sets that you have as a coach because things will constantly be changing. Like I've realized this. Like I have one client that I work with now. I've been working with him actually now for 6 years, right? When we started, a lot of the way that when I trained him, basically for the most part, hypertrophy training, we would do exercise and realistically, most people's first set after a good warm up, that's their number one set, right? That's what they're hitting their best. This particular client, I don't know if it's some mental. I think it's some part compartment mental, some part physical. He is very good at having like a high endurance capability for his muscle. His muscle endurance is insane. It's always been just naturally. Before I trained him, he was insane muscle endurance. His second set is always better than his first set. Always. It's like, even if it's just the technique, he still has 5 reps, say, it's the 5 reps on set two is just like crazy. And I've done every different warm up technique with him to the point in my head, his first set is still a warm up set. His first actual working set is still his warm up set because he just needs that to get his muscle going, to kind of like get out of this fast twitch muscles are just not as developed. And they've gotten better. We've definitely improved, but it's still nowhere near. And that just him naturally. And the fact that I've accepted that, I've changed my volume schematics with him. He's starting gaining much more muscle as I had the ability to change because I just saw it, accepted this is reality. It's unfortunate not the textbook.
This is
This is what it is. I need to move forward.
another big conversation. Is we all have our belief systems, and it's very hard to let go. Very hard to let go. And the more successful we are, the more biased we become because it works. I I've trained all these athletes. I've won EuroLeagues and titles. Who cares, right? And I was opinionated when I was much younger, only to
Yeah.
realize that what this did, besides stalling an athlete in progress, was also limiting my progress because I was more close to ideas. Whereas now I want to believe that I'm much more open, and when I don't know, I feel deeply, I feel it immediately. If there's something that I see or hear that I don't understand it, I just step back and say, I need to know this better. So
Yeah.
will open a book or try to find more information from articles and people that are specialists. And I accept that people, there's such a vast area of things that we need to know. So I opened up a lot more. I opened up a lot more to my athletes when they were telling me that here's what helps me and here's what I want to do, and that I paid attention. It used to be that I was more like, no, okay, great, but let's do this. No, I have athletes now that I've been coaching for 3 years that they walk in and they do their thing. Their thing is our program based on what they feel helps them that day. And I kind of directed, hey, let's add this. How do you feel if your hamstring is a little bit tight? Let's do this. But I do trust their instinct, something that I would never do 5 years ago. It was my program. Now it's not my program. It's let's see what you're bringing to the table. And we're talking about experienced individuals that that are into it. I'm not
Yes.
talking to this
Of
person that
course.
I'm just bored and I want to do a bench press and a shoulder press and get out of
Yeah.
here. I'm talking about
Yeah.
people that are committed and like your guy, right? So pay attention to what their needs are. I've seen people perform, really well doing things that I wouldn't approve. And that was a big lesson. I said, hey, just wait a minute. There's something here. So open up, go back to this complexity theory and try to accept different ideas and try to accept that these athletes might be performing despite some limitations or that you think they may have, or some exercises they're not doing or doing. So that was a big, I think that's probably one of the biggest changes that have happened in me the last 5 years, just to be able to accept more things.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that makes you such a great coach, and one of the reasons why you've been so successful as a coach for all these years. Coach, we're coming to the end of the podcast. I want to ask one quick question to cap it all up. If you have if there's any basketball players that watch this or any athletes that watch this, and you had to give like five pieces of quick advice that you think would help them move forward with their career. If you give like summarize it in five quick bullet points, what would they be?
Be consistent with your training. When coaches talk to you, focus on what they're telling you, not how they're telling you. So if they're yelling at you, I know it's hard. Go back home and try to understand what they were telling you. Listen less to the people that are outside your circle. Another great quote that not everybody, and you'll understand that quote, not everybody in your circles is in your corner. The people that are in your corner, you're in the corner business, are your sacred band. Okay? These are the people that have your best interest in mind most of the time. Agents, these type of people are opinionated. Maybe your parents are biased. Don't listen to too many people. Be patient because you're going to put a whole lot of hard work and you're not going to get out anything out of it for a long time. So it's work, 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 bench, work, 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 2 minutes, work, bad performance. So, but at some point, if you don't give up, you're going to get your chance. Whether because somebody's going to get injured and you're going to have to play, whether because somebody's going to turn their head, hell, look, this guy's really improving. He's been fighting in practice and he's doing better. Let's give him a chance. Let's give him those 5 minutes in this game, right? And the last thing is the only way to fail is if you give up. And that's not that stupid, like self-help advice to Instagram. Oh, don't ever give up. Here's the truth. Because there's a big U. I think Seth Godin is a great author, the best-selling author Seth Godin. That he had a book is called the U shape or something like that. That a lot of people
Mhm.
just give up right when they get out of this, you like bad performance, and you get it out there, and then you become, uh, you have resentment, and you turn around people. You're looking for victim. You become a victim, and you're looking for people to blame. Okay, so be patient, be consistent. The only way to fail is you give up, and everybody ends up where they are destined to end up. So if you're destined to go to the NBA, if you don't give up, nobody's going to stop you. It just might be that you're not destined for the NBA and you're destined for somewhere else, some other level, and that's where you're going to end if you keep working, if you keep listening, and you keep putting consistently hard and smart work. That's it. And if you're talking about basketball players, focus on your physical development, focus on your personal skills, but somebody that understands the level you want to compete in, and obviously participate in team practice. Those three things: individual, physical development, and team practice. Being smart and try to understand how to play the game.
Coach, anyone that watches this, I think they're going to get a whole bunch of value. So I thank you so much for jumping on. I got a whole bunch of value. I feel like a better coach just being in this podcast with you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We're going to link your Instagram if anyone wants to go check him out and follow his journey as he's taking over the world of European basketball one step at a time. Coach, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Tony. It's great seeing you again.
Ciao.